welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura Fawks Lapole.
And I'm Katy Holloway, and today we're talking about animal communication, humans communicating via language or however they choose to talk to each other. This was another one that I feel like recently has been going around like social media a lot. Various aspects.
Definitely TikTok. It's been a lot on TikTok.
Oh my goodness. So I think it's going to be a fun... I don't know what Laura's talking about, but I think
we're going to explode some minds. Mine exploded a little bit.
Oh, did it?
Doing my research. Like, I knew some stuff, but dude, I think I'm going to even explode. Well, I think you're going to be like, what? At one point.
Just at one point. Oh, goodness. So this is episode 2 of season 2.
Yes.
So we're just shaking and baking along with more episodes here. All right. Do we want to go right back into nature news? We didn't have any nature news last time because we were just kind of easing back into the season here, but we have some news for today. So, all right. So the nature news that I have is that it's an article on nature.com that's talking about, and this just came out end of May, that paleontologists are pushing and hoping that President Joe Biden will restore protections on fossil-rich U.S. soils, which I think everybody that's environmentally minded is hoping that this happens.
Not just paleontologists.
Yeah, not just paleontologists.
And again, all we talk about is dinosaurs in nature news.
It just keeps coming back. We'll eventually have to do a whole episode on dinosaurs, but yeah, until now, it's just dinosaurs are going to live in our nature news, which is really funny because, like, it's not like you hear about dinosaurs in the news.
No, it's only in nature news.
And I feel like only in our nature news that dinosaurs consistently come up.
Or now on my Facebook feed because it knows I like it. So
the algorithm, it knows you. All right. So as most people know, like the former president, who shall not be named, kept shrinking protected areas. And so in April, Biden sent Deb Haaland.
I'm terrible.
She's the new Secretary of the Interior, and I'm a big fan. I think she's doing a really good job so far. So she went to Utah to meet scientists and tribal leaders and officials, which I think is a huge step in the right direction because, I mean, maybe it's just because I've been paying attention to politics a lot more than what I've ever had, but I don't think tribal leaders have ever been asked for their opinion about this
Not
stuff.
often anyway, and that's all about collaborative conservation. That's the only way we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think if anything, if they've been consulted in the past, it's been a quote unquote consultation. You know what I mean? Like they've asked to say that they have asked, but I don't think they've ever truly valued.
Well, it might not actually be collaborative.
Correct.
It's more of like utilizing, not collaborating,
or to save face kind of deal. So, but she's meeting with them, which is fantastic. So, even though the Department of the Interior right now is declining to comment on when exactly the results of all those meetings will be made public. She did say, the Secretary of Interior, that she's looking forward to sharing what she heard and saw with President Biden. So he has the benefit of those perspectives as we chart a path forward on the stewardship of these incredible culturally rich places.
Cool.
Yeah, which I think, I just think that's amazing. So, they're going to be maybe altering some of the boundaries of some of the, reserve's current land, looking at other various boundaries of like Bears Ears, I know that was a big one.
Yeah.
And of course, like paleontologists are fretting because I mean it's all over these lands. There's dinosaur digs and research opportunities.
Out west is definitely the place to be for dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, goodness. And I guess too, it says like there's a whole section on this article. Again, you can go to nature.com and it was published on May 28th. But there's a whole section on fossil poaching risk.
Wow.
Apparently, because Trump's move to open up public land that was previously protected by its national monument status to ranching In resource extraction, including coal and uranium mining, the decision also removed certain protections that had been afforded to fossils, exposing invertebrate and plant fossils to risk of quote-unquote casual collection.
I mean, I totally see that.
Yeah.
To be fair, I've collected my fair share of fossils.
Right.
On, like, roads, like trilobites. We just stop and look for trilobites at shale outcroppings.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know whose land it technically is.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're not stealing an entire T-Rex either.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
So I feel like
that would be crazy.
Just bone by bone every night going out into the dark and digging up a T-Rex.
Yeah. Because otherwise, I was going to say it'd be pretty hard to steal it.
Yeah.
Like, discreetly.
just running with a huge dino femur bone, like just running across the highway.
The person must be cosplaying a caveman.
Yeah, right. I don't know what they're doing. So anyway, I mean, there's some good news there. Obviously, again, if anybody's in the environmental world, we all know that this administration takes environment a lot more serious than the last administration did. So hopefully we keep going in this positive direction.
Yeah, definitely. Well, mine isn't necessarily like breaking news, but it's news to me because I just learned it today. So I was fortunate enough to be in on a really great webinar on fungi that was put on by the Chesapeake chapter of NAI, the National Association of Interpretation. And it was awesome. And I learned two cool things. One, did you know that there was a fungi at one point? So fungi came before terrestrial plants, which I don't know why I'm surprised, because they helped plants be able to get on land.
Yeah.
As we've mentioned in our previous fungi episode, their relationship. But they found, this is totally relevant to your nature news, they found fossils back in, like, I think it was like the 1859 or something in Canada, and they were like, I have no idea what this is. They were like, probably a pine tree. Okay, later they were like, okay, not a pine tree.
Definitely a pine tree.
Then they were like, okay, maybe not a conifer, maybe just some other kind of plant. It wasn't until 1960s that it really, some guy started thinking, like, this is probably a fungi and I think I can prove it. And it wasn't until very recently, like, I think it was 2017 maybe, that they actually determined what it was. It was a fungi. And Katie, this fungi was the largest terrestrial organism of its time. It was 8 meters tall.
Jeez.
Can you imagine? And 1 meter diameter. Okay, so just like a big old spike.
Okay, that's what I was ask, like a stalk.
Yeah, but can you imagine if like fungi right now were that big?
Yeah, that's like man, I don't know.
It'd be both awesome and terrifying.
Exactly. Yeah, because. Yeah, that's bizarre.
They would just, like, eat your house.
Right?
Like,
just take over. Big. That is really big.
And then the other one that was just like, what? That I'm absolutely now going to tell the story every Christmas.
Yeah.
So, you know how every time you see a mushroom drawn in any kind of, like, fairy tale or anything, it's always those red ones with the white spots.
Yes. Okay,
so totally makes sense because that mushroom, Amanita, fly Amanita is the common name, has been around and used by people for at least 9,000 years, or since 9,000 BC. It's psychoactive and poisonous, so you got to prepare it just right to have your psychoactive experience. Yeah. And it's from like Asia, Siberia, and has like then moved all over the world kind of thing.
Okay.
Anywho. So, apparently, shamans would use this, of course, to have, like, religious experiences. Yeah. Or spiritual experiences, I should say. So, in Siberia, shamans were kind of in charge of distributing this fungi to people to help them have spiritual experiences. Mm-hmm. And when they would go visit people, they would dress up kind of like the fungi, which is, red and white. Which is amazing. I don't think awesome. They probably had like a it's
not like a costume.
At least I don't think so. But I would be down if it was.
Yeah, like a mushroom bringing you mushrooms.
Right. Well, think about Siberia. There's a lot of snow in Siberia.
Yes.
So sometimes they couldn't get to the front door. So they would drop mushrooms down people's chimneys.
Interesting.
And this is probably ringing a bell. Who's somebody who's in a red and white outfit who drops things down your chimney?
Yeah, right.
It's Santa. And so, whoa, my mind exploded there for, a little bit, thinking, okay, obviously St. Nicholas has Christian roots, but the look and things are because of this. But also it's connected to the reindeer, because apparently reindeer love to eat this fungi. And then they totally trip out.
That's what I was going to ask. Do they trip after it?
Yes.
No wonder they can fly.
It makes them jump everywhere, get really jumpy and hyper. And so, of course, they're jumping really high, and people are probably thinking,
oh, they can fly. Yeah, they can fly.
And right, if you're also tripping, you probably can see them flying.
Everyone is tripping on mushrooms.
I cannot wait this Christmas to tell everybody, well, did you know this whole Santa thing is just based on a crazy mushroom trip?
And for anybody wondering, yes, these are the normal conversations that Laura and I have with friends and family.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is not breaking. This is a normal conversation. This kind of stuff. But
all
also,
right, well, that was my nature news.
I have so many questions. We need to do more research into this guy. I don't know anything more
than this.
Okay, we need to do some research, because I want to know, is it like Christmas? Does he bring the whole village at one time? Mushrooms? Or is it one at a time? Is it a whole neighborhood that just trips out of their minds? Or is it, we will do some research and we will definitely get back to you all.
I'm super curious about, I think we're planning eventually on doing some kind of
medicinal.
Yeah. Maybe it can be in that one.
Yeah. Okay. We will definitely get back to you. All right. Are we ready to talk about animals talking to people? Communicating?
Let's get to the actually what we're supposed to talk about today.
Yeah. Right. Not trip fest.
Are you going to define anything? Because if not, I'm ready to. Before we get started. Okay. So I was thinking, to start this, let's be very clear as to what language is defined as.
Yes, true.
So according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, language is a system of conventional spoken, manual, signed, or written symbols by means of which human beings, as members of a social group and participants in its culture, express themselves. The functions include communication, the expression of identity, play, imaginative expression, and emotional release. So, that is a very specific definition of language, and I think today we're both going to kind of tackle, can this definition be broadened?
I think it should be. And because we talked about this whenever we were preparing for this episode, because again, remember, Laura and I don't know what the other one is talking about, right. So we have to be very vague, and that was one of the problems we kept coming across is animals, obviously, and how many times have we brought this up, that science has to start looking at things differently?
Exactly. No, you're right. This keeps coming up in our
coming
topics.
up, that we have to stop thinking of things from a very us direction, very human direction. Right. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, so I guess communication is probably the better term, at least right now.
Yeah.
But my proposition during all of this is that language should be broadened.
It should be. It really should be a broad term.
Other things.
Because it is very specific. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And this is, so my first one is one of them, that this does technically fit the definition of language. And that's because it's Koko the gorilla.
Woohoo!
So I figured we had to do this one, because it is, like I said, it's the poster child of interspecies communication, because it was really the first.
I was checking with Kim. I was like, she's doing Koko, right?
Yeah, of course I am. All right, so on July 4th, 1971, a baby gorilla who would have been named, here we go, Hanabiko, which means fireworks child in Japanese, was born at the San Francisco Zoo, which is a gorilla. I'm not sure why they decided to make it Japanese on the American Independence Day. Okay, let's just go. Let's move on. When gorilla was a year old, Project Koko, because Hannibal Co., the last part of the name, so Project Koko, begins under the watchful eye of a PhD candidate, Francine Patterson, out of Stanford University. The goal of Dr. Patterson's work was to study communication and linguistics of gorillas. So the first few years, and basically, like, can they talk? Obviously, they're smart, but can they talk? Can they communicate with humans?
Right. Is it language? That's what I feel like they keep questioning. Because some
language?
Scientists are saying only humans are the only ones with language. And other people are like, well.
Yeah, not really. Again, we're looking at it. I think
depends on your definition.
Yeah, it's a very closed-minded view, I feel like. Okay, so the first few years, Dr. Patterson started with simple signs for water that moved Koko's hands to do it as well, which is exactly how you teach. Like my son was taught baby sign language in his daycare, and it was super useful. Even though I didn't catch on right away, he knew. Yeah. I have a video of when I figured out that he was signing more. And then I looked back at a couple other videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, this poor child's been signing for like a month. And I didn't know because they didn't tell us that they were doing that. So it's the same thing. It's like the hand over hand. She would do it with Koko's hand, water, that she'd get water. Same thing for more and food and on and on. So just keeping it with the basics. Although
the concept more is pretty advanced. I mean, if you're starting with, now water, food, but like more, that's definitely not a simple term. Like that's a concept, not a thing.
It is. Still hungry, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Luke learned, he was less than a year.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I just think it's like, that is
it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. All right, so, they were teaching them, simple things and then the most frequently used thing. All right, so now mind you, Western lowland gorillas, which is the specific, it's just not a species, it's a subspecies, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Subspecies that Koko is. They weigh anywhere from 150 to 200 pounds and can stand upwards of 6 feet tall. And I can say this is a scientific name because it is gorilla. So this is the only scientific name I might ever be able to get. But what more, it's not like it's teaching a little baby to sign. You're teaching, it's 150 pounds because eventually, obviously Koko grows up. You're teaching a huge gorilla sign language. So just put it into perspective here. Like, yes, it's one thing to teach a baby sign language because our humans stay fairly small. This is huge, and gorillas get fairly big pretty quick.
Yeah, at least she was captive bred and like hand raised pretty much.
But if she still wanted to hurt you, she definitely could because there's definitely the strength. So the relationship between Koko and Dr. Patterson really had to be strong and had to start early, and there was a lot of trust, and it did work out. So Dr. Patterson, because of this trust, convinced the zoo to allow her to not only study Koko, but she moves the gorilla off-site to Stanford University. Remember, this is 1974, so she just
before they would ever let you do this.
So after some very early successes, they end up in Woodside, California, in 1979, where she could provide a more protected environment for the gorilla. Now, gorillas are social animals, so this move didn't just include Koko, but her best pal, Michael, who was also...
the cat?
No. We're going to get to the cat. No, Michael is...
That's my favorite part.
Right? Michael is another gorilla.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I think... So while Koko becomes, famous for her signing, Michael is the one that gains his fame for his creativity, and one example was his paintings. So he was one of the first ones to start, painting within zoos, which if you've ever gone to a zoo, animal paintings are pretty darn popular.
Yeah. I wonder if that's where the Ivan, with that book,
I don't know what it's based off
on
of.
Him. I don't know.
So Koko and Michael, mostly Koko though, go on to have numerous documentaries, shows, books, children's books, interviews with famous actors like Mr. Rogers and Robert Williams, all about their life and unique ability to communicate with humans. And if you haven't seen really any documentaries there's tons of stuff on YouTube. Look it up because it is.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I don't want to say like animatronic but because you're not expecting that from a gorilla, it seems so different than normal gorilla. It just seems, I don't know.
Yeah. But at the same time, the whole thing seems so natural because you can tell she's like perfectly capable of communicating.
Totally. Like
what she needs.
She knows what she wants. So yeah, but and this whole thing is so unique because Koko, she moved it past water and more. So, knowing the simple signs for water or food is one thing. Power of association, she gets what she wants, right? Which obviously most animals can figure that out. But that's, still common communication. But as she progressed, she began to invent words.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So for that, if she didn't know a sign for it, and it all makes sense. So for instance, a ring, like a wedding ring, she called a finger bracelet.
Totally.
Which is exactly
called.
Or a face mask, she called an eye hat. Which is
That's contacts, silly Koko.
Right? Which is really cute, though, eye hat. Because she's trying to figure it out.
There's a thing where kindergartners do that, too. Like, kindergartners who can't think of a word, they'll just make one up, and it makes way more sense than what we call it.
Way more sense. Yeah, way more sense. Yeah. And that's what she was doing. So the ability to take signs that she does know and combine them to describe something that she doesn't know the word for, to me, that's like a whole other level. Because it's even... I mean, rats are very smart, but even like a rat can know to hit a button, I get food. And that's essentially the same thing with like basic sign language. I do this hand signal, I get food. But she took it beyond, which shows that she really knew what was going on. And so she would also frequently talk about her living arrangements, which is apparently something she was very well known for. If she wanted things to be switched up within her area, she would communicate those needs to Dr. Patterson and staff, which is, again, like, I like switching my room up every once in a while.
She was an interior designer.
Right? Just, like stuff being moved, got bored with something, wanted it switched up a bit, and she was very particular, which is so funny. So she was also known to have a sense of humor, which I feel like a lot of great apes do have a fairly good sense of humor. There was a situation where, waiting for dinner one day, a researcher picked up various items and asked Koko what color they are. The researcher held up a white cloth, and Koko quickly signed red. The researcher was like asking again, same response, red. And knowing that Koko knew the correct answer, the researcher said that Koko wouldn't get any juice or dinner if she did not give the correct color out of frustration. Yeah, right. It's harsh, but I'm sure out of frustration because, like, she knew, and you can tell, like, the story that I read, it was like, you could tell Koko knew, but for whatever reason, she was signing red.
Messing with him.
All right. And so Koko asked one more time. She did the same thing. And then when Koko reached out and picked up the tiniest red fuzzy off the white cloth and signed red multiple times, then started giving a hearty gorilla laugh. So she, like, knew what she was doing, like an ornery little child. You know what I mean?
I'm not touching you, or I'm right. It really was red.
Yeah, it was red. Yeah. Which, again, is so... that's just another level of, like...
because humor also indicates,
a much larger intelligence. So she definitely knew what she was doing for sure. And at the end of her life, Dr. Patterson said that Koko knew how to sign about 1,000 words and understood about 1,000 more.
Wow.
Yeah. So... all in all, there really is so much to know about Koko. She could seriously be her own episode because, she's her own book. I mean, documentaries, there's so much out there about her. But the importance of this research went beyond just, hey, can a gorilla sign and it be meaningful? It allowed humans to truly get in the mind of another species for the first time. An animal was telling us complex thoughts and feelings especially when seen with Koko, when they gave her the pet kitten, which I didn't go too deep into that because that's a whole story, but that's what Laura brought up earlier. They gave her a kitten, and she was so gentle with the kitten, and she even named the cat herself, and the cat's name was All Ball, which it rhymes. And so like, there's like a whole other layer to that of, like, she gave it a name, but not only that, like the name rhymes.
My favorite part was when apparently, like, one time she broke her sink and they were like, Koko, what did you do? And she blamed the cat.
Yeah, right.
And I died.
Which is such like a little kid thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do it. The cat did it. But it's also, you figure it, like it's like 170-pound gorilla blaming a tiny cat for a broken sink. Like, who do you think did it? Oh, goodness. So, all this, the emotion, the insight, help people to connect and care about species that, most likely probably wouldn't have normally have connected with. Because most people, most of those people in the 70s and 80s saw a gorilla in a zoo, either thought it was scary or like just another animal. But Koko really opened the world of minds of how animals could and would think and what's just important to them, which isn't just food and water. It really goes beyond that. So she really was the literal voice for her species. And that was, at the time, especially drastically declining in the world. And so she showed that animals are certainly more than just animals. So Michael passed in 2000, so not, 20 years ago. And then he passed from congested heart failure, which is fairly common for a male, and male gorillas in captivity. But Koko didn't pass until 2018, but both their legacies live on through the Gorilla Foundation and countless books, interviews, Nat Geo publications, and so much more. And really, like I said, we could go on for hours and hours about Koko, but I felt like that's the perfect intro into animal communication, because that's kind of what started a big portion of us talking with animals and really communicating in the way that we see as communication. It wasn't, an interpretation of an animal's actions. It was communication on a human scale that just we learned so much about. So that's Koko the gorilla.
Love her. Well, I'm also about to talk about a famous talker. But before that, too, again, I just wanted to, so at least for my two species, I would propose that the definition of language should include just auditory, not necessarily spoken, but auditory sounds.
Anything in general.
Things,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or written symbols that allow communication between any species.
That would make sense,
So it doesn't have to be so specific like humans or anything like that. So my first species that I want to talk about is extremely well known to actually speak human language, and that's the African gray parrot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to talk about Alex a little bit. Alex, the gray parrot.
Oh, yeah, Alex.
The most famous of the gray parrots.
I don't know why I didn't think about doing Alex. I really like African grays, but I didn't even think about Alex.
I immediately thought of African grays for talking because I've known several that were so amazing at speaking.
Oh,
it was eerie.
Yeah, it's scary. Very scary.
Everything about African gray parrots is amazing. They're incredibly intelligent, outperforming college students in visual memory tests.
Which is so funny.
Awesome. Their brains are super similar to primates, allowing information to process at levels comparable to humans. They use tools, they've been shown to be altruistic, and they're thought to be some of the smartest animals in the world. So, it only makes sense that somehow they have grasped language, or at least what I'm calling language. So what does language look like between parrots and people? Well, what makes the African gray parrot so special is its ability to speak in words that are understandable to humans. So Koko could sign, she couldn't speak.
Correct.
African grays don't sign, they speak.
Yeah.
So they are able to understand what humans say to them, and then they can speak back in our own language, which makes it very convenient. So many people are familiar with the fact that parrots can mimic human speech. Mimicry, though, is not the same as understanding.
Yes.
So I believe that for spoken communication to be considered valid, the words have to convey meaning to both sides. Otherwise, it's just a trained behavior. Kind of. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, it's just association.
Yeah, but I don't know if it would have to be. Well, I guess, okay, so what did you say communication has to be for both understand? Okay. I mean, I guess I could agree with that. I was going to say, because if it was just language, that wouldn't be, that's not true. You know what I mean? Like, but communication...
Right. Communication is usually two-way, in my opinion, and so both have to be in on the conversation.
That makes sense. I can get on board with that.
So how are parrots
if somebody can't get on board with that, fight us.
Yeah, bring it. So, how are parrots able to do this? Well, like humans and some other animals, birds are called vocal learners, and this means that they're able to quickly learn and mimic sounds they hear. They have an area of the brain entirely devoted to this. And parrots in particular have an extra layer in this area. So like songbirds have this area because they're vocal learners, but parrots have an extra layer, likely giving them the extra ability to mimic human speech so well. And so not only is their brain made for learning language, but their vocal cords are able to produce a variety of sounds, allowing them to physically do it.
And if you haven't heard an African gray speak, please look up something because it is very good.
You won't know that it's not a person.
Yeah,
they usually sound exactly like the person they live with. And
which is even funnier. Yeah,
I've met parrots with like woman voices. I met a parrot with a deep male voice once. It is crazy.
Hello.
It was like that. I'll tell near the end.
Okay.
So why do parrots talk so much? Well, they're a very social species and that they want to fit in with each other.
Yep.
So peer pressure, pure and simple. No different than people. So when humans find themselves with new groups, they try and fit in, and a lot of people even start mimicking different speech patterns. Like you'll pick up an accent, or you'll start like actually mimicking the way that people talk around you. Parrots do the same thing, not only among other parrots of the same species, which they have found there are regional dialects of parrots, but also with other species. So when they live with humans, this is only parrots only talk with humans, which only makes sense because why would they be just talking to other species who wouldn't understand them? But
just talking to the dog. Yeah.
When they live with humans, they consider us part of their flock and try to communicate with us. Although all parrots could talk, wild ones typically don't, since they don't feel the need to communicate with humans when they've got their own flock. So
that would be way more fun, though, if they communicated with us whenever they were wild, because I'd be like, tell me about your adventures.
Totally.
Like, that would
just
be
come
way
on
more
down
fun.
To the bird feeder and we can chit chat.
Yeah, please talk to me.
So how do we know that the communication is two-way? Well, many people, or many, maybe even most parrots, are purely mimicking human noises and applying context. So, for example, when a parrot hears a phone ring, it hears people say hello and may therefore say hello when a phone rings, because they understand the two are associated.
Yeah.
But it's not really understanding the meaning of and applying meaning to words.
Yeah, what does hello actually mean? They don't understand that it means a greeting. They just hear, like Pavlov's dog.
This is the time to do it.
Yeah, this is what I need to do. Yeah.
Exactly. However, some parrots, and in particular highly intelligent African greys, have been shown to understand what they're saying. So, Alex, the best example of this. He's very famous, and he was trained and studied by Dr. Irene Pepperberg, which is an amazing last name.
Right.
She and coworkers trained him rigorously to identify objects correctly and associate the spoken word with the object he wanted. Same as Koko started, very simple.
Basics,
Here's what it is. Tell me what it is. This expanded to words for other concepts, including shapes, numbers, etc. By the end of his life, he ended up learning 50 objects, 7 colors, 6 shapes, and could count up to 8. But even more astonishingly, Alex could understand and communicate the concepts of same, different, bigger, and smaller, which is, again, like more. It's something, it's not just this word means this thing. You have to apply knowledge.
Yeah.
Apparently his vocabulary was pretty average for a parrot at around 100 words, but he was really advanced at understanding concepts. And he also made up words for things. Like Koko. Also, which made perfect sense. So he made up a word for cake because he didn't know what cake was. He called it yummy bread.
Yes!
Yummy bread.
We need
just
that.
Imagine this little parrot. I want more yummy bread.
We need that on a t-shirt. Like a cartoon cake slice yummy bread. Yummy bread.
With like a parrot and a fork.
Yeah, right. Joshua.
And he also had his own name for apple, even though I'm sure they probably taught him what apple
was. Yeah, you would think.
But he called it a bannery, which
Bannery.
pepperbird, which the doctor thought maybe because it tasted like kind of like a banana to him, but looked like a giant cherry. So it was a bannery.
Bannery. That's awesome.
Also, his math skills were considered very advanced because he had grasped the concept of zero, and he could do some math.
And that's hard, knowing zero. That's not a normal...
Nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Yeah. Alex clearly knew what was said to him and what he was saying, and if this isn't language, I don't know what is. So.
Yeah, no. Even though, like you said, even though it wasn't a lot, again, it's like another species. People just, I think now people know that parrots talk, but I don't think people understand like the depth of what they can understand.
Right. And the repercussions, like all things we've been talking about, the repercussions of what we're talking about today, guys, is pretty extreme.
Yes.
Because if animals can grasp language, we need to be thinking about that when interacting with them.
I'm a vegetarian too. Like, I don't want to eat something that can talk to me. Like,
yeah, that would be really hard.
You know, that's tough. Oh, man.
What's really funny is that this entire thing, I remember when I was a kid, you know, in all the animal movies where animals talk, they all talk together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they all talk amongst each other. So as a kid, I remember learning about Koko and being like, oh my gosh, how has no one had this idea? We just need to ask Koko
to talk.
What the animals are saying.
Yeah, right?
Because there's like this main animal language. That's what I totally thought and believed.
Yeah. I mean,
only later in life did I realize, that like,
they don't
don't talk
to each other.
It's not just cracking the one. It's got to crack them all.
Yeah, right. But it would be interesting. I'm sure they did. After I did the research for this, for Koko, I really wanted to pull up like the articles, like the actual research articles end of things to see a little bit more deep dive. Because I've, like you, I mean, my whole life I've seen stuff on Koko, but I want to get more into the science realm of it because it's stuff like that. Like what were they talking about? What did they ask? Were they asking?
And they might have, like, maybe she would have more insight because she's better able to read body language than us.
Yeah.
Or who knows?
Like her opinion.
Like, did they ever ask her what her cat was trying to say?
Yeah, or just her. I'm very interested in her opinions. Yeah. Like, what is her opinion on things? Which she clearly had an opinion if she's, like, rearranging her room. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, if you get, like, let's say Koko together with an African Grey, could they have a conversation? And what would that look like? Yeah, that would be crazy.
And so real quick before I let us go, I forgot I was going to say my African Grey thing. So one time I was working at a zoo where we had an African Grey and we did overnights. And so we slept in the office to make sure everything was okay. And if anybody needed us, they could come get us. So I was in the office with him. His name was Doug. And,
oh my gosh, is that an amazing African Grey name? Doug.
He was so funny because he was a pretty cranky bird. And he would, like, when other animals were running around, like, underneath of him, he would growl at them like a dog. Anyway, I turn out the lights, and I always, like, I'm a person that I talk to animals all the time.
Of course.
I tell my cat goodbye, whatever.
Of course.
So I'm like, I say, goodnight, Doug. Turn out the lights. Totally in, like, deadpan human voice. Good night. Like, I almost died because it was so unexpected and scary. And I was like...
and delayed, too, because it wasn't like an immediate response where you're like, good night, Doug, and then you just like, oh, good night. It was the delayed.
Good night. Oh, creepy. I liked him, so but weird. Creepy.
Yeah.
All right, we better move on.
Yeah, we do. All right, we have two more to get through here. All right, so my next one, I'm going to be talking about whale communication.
Nice! That's going to be a perfect segue into my next one.
Yep, because I almost included some of your next one in with mine, and so I had to ask Kim, I was like, where's the line? So I'm only going to be talking about whales. Just
Sweet.
Whales.
No, great.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see how they'll overlap.
It's it's interesting. All right. So I think I've already mentioned on, For the Love of Nature before that whales are by far one of my favorite animals. There's just something about encountering one in the wild that's, I don't know, it's just like magical sounds really cheesy, but we'll just go with magical for now.
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone has heard whale songs. The combination of, and not like Finding Dory.
Right, because that's immediately what I was like, oh yeah, I can speak whale too.
Yeah. I'm awesome at speaking whale. But the combination in those songs, a combination of long singing tones, make really for like perfect Zen sleep music for me anyway. But they whales click, others make a pounding sound, or blips and moans. But we're starting to take it one step further, and I guess I should say Western researchers are taking it one step further again, because again, there are people that are so much more advanced than us. And so for years, coastal indigenous groups all around the world have held whales in high regards and often gave them an important role within their cultures.
Definitely.
In China, for instance, they believed that whales brought food and sustained civilizations. In the Pacific Northwest, in Canada and Alaska, whales appeared in totems, represented strength, family, spiritual guidance, and oddly enough, communication. So for a long time, many groups around the world have known about whales in some form of communication, caring, and an interaction with humans.
Yeah.
So formal, put that in quotes, formal whale communication, we'll call it, officially began in the 80s with a report that a captive beluga whale, which is technically a whale, but, member of the, what is it, Delphinaturus.
Oh my.
Delphinapterus. They're in the same family as narwhals.
I saw this. I think I know where you're about to go, because I'm pretty sure I saw this in my research about this beluga in particular.
I wouldn't be surprised. His name was Nock. Was it
that's
Nock?
what it was.
And so Nock reported to be mimicking and attempting human-like sounds. Let me just tell you, we'll find the audio and we'll post it. Laura.
Also, Finding Dory again.
Yeah, right? But listen. Ooh. Now I have to go watch it. But Nock, it took everything in me when I was doing this to not send you these audio clips, and I sent it to Kim. I was laughing so hard. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay. All right. So I'll find the one of Nock later. We'll post it. But there's one here of a killer whale, an orca talking.
I can hear it.
Hold on. Let me turn it up.
Hello? Hello?
Oh my gosh, that sounds so much like Molly, who would go from like angel voice to demon voice.
Right.
Hello?
Here's another one. So he's saying Amy, the trainers.
Okay. It's a toot noise.
1, 2.
So weird. So anyway. So yeah, I die every time I hear the Amy. It gets me every time. All right, so Nock, it really is. Look it up. I'll find someone. I'll post someone. We'll post that, and then the killer whale stuff. It's just crazy. So whales don't have vocal cords to actually make human sounds. Mm-hmm. So this is also what I found hilarious. So to mimic humans, they have to change the air pressure in their nasal tract and make other adjustment to valves and sacs connected to the blowhole, which is how Nock talked. Which is way more complicated of a process than just vocal cords, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm trying to I was just trying to make noises through my, only nose.
Well, you don't have a blowhole, so...
No, but through your nose, nasal passages. Come on.
Okay, all right, change the pressure in my nasal cavity. Now make adjustments to valves and sacs in my blowhole. Yeah. Oh, goodness. It's way more complex. I don't know. I guess I just took talking for granted. Well, one, we do it all the time, but also it's very simple. I mean, simple is relative.
Yeah, for
Simple
us.
is relative, but it is. I mean, we have vocal cords. So anyway, so Nock was the first whale to have recorded, their animal-like communication. And it's exactly what you sound like when you go underwater and talk for this one. It's really eerie.
Which makes sense because I'm sure that's how they're hearing it.
Right? Here's one.
It's just a person with a kazoo.
Yeah, it sounds like a little kid with a kazoo. But it is. Yeah. It's exactly like what you would sound like underwater. So anyway, so Nock passed away in 1999. But he only made those sounds for a 4-year time frame.
Interesting.
Before he hit puberty. Right?
Then communication just didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, right? He had other priorities. So those working with Nock, though, often said it appeared like the beluga was trying to communicate because he just wanted to interact with humans. So, I mean, many whales are several different species of whales are solitary, but also extremely curious, and include this being curious about humans, or just as curious. So unlike Koko, while they can't directly communicate in a way that we can understand, they're certainly motivated enough to try and talk how we talk so that we understand them. And I think that's such a key element that so many in mainstream science misses. This is what we were talking about earlier, was that animal people get it. I feel like animal people get it. But I think it's often overlooked in mainstream science that humans figure that animal-human communication needs to be talking or some form of communication, because that is the definition of language, that we humans can understand. In order to properly communicate, they need to do it our way, which again is such a silly concept. And for Nock to be so desperately reaching out intentionally, knowing that we can't understand him on his terms. So he is well, this is how they talk. He hears humans and, trainers and stuff talking back and forth, and the researchers talking back and forth. So in his mind, he's intelligent enough to be well, they're making those sounds and they seem like there's something going on. They say something, then something else happens. So let me go ahead and mimic that. And now all of a sudden, because what's Nock doing? He's starting to talk. I'm sure he's getting fish. I'm sure he's getting rewarded. So he's sweet, I'm going to keep talking to him. Yeah. And keep it coming. So yeah, and they're doing that all through their blowhole.
Well, and I think that, I think that it could still be two-way communication if we could figure it out.
If we could figure it out, yeah. It's just, I don't know, for how much people say, humans are the most intelligent, I think we have a long way to go. So anyway, there's also research going on whale communication out of the Geochemical and Environmental Research Group, GERG.
Yes.
And Texas A&M, that is called the crustacean. Not crustacean.
Wait, you are not about to wait. Did Kim really read your stuff?
Yeah, the Translation Initiative.
The CHAT?
No, this is the Cetacean Translation Initiative.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna be so mad.
No, Kim. Yeah, no, she would have caught it. All right, so now there's research going on out of the Geochemical and Environmental Research Group, GERG, which is an amazing abbreviation. Where do you work for, GERG? In Texas A&M, that is called the Cetacean Translation Initiative. A group of researchers is trying to meet sperm whales where they are, literally, and do just what I talked about a moment ago, which is communicate in a way that they understand. They're using artificial intelligence and machine learning, which will translate the clicks and vocalizations into language so that we can understand what they are talking about. And I really think that this is the first step in what they believe will be a meaningful communication between two species, which is sperm whales and humans. First, we understand what they're saying, then basically repeat it back. And whales are incredibly intelligent. I'm sure like they come up to boats and everything if they want. They investigate and head back when they're done. They're like, all right, cool, I've seen you and I'm leaving.
I'm so fascinated that they've chosen sperm whales, because if I was a researcher, I would not choose a whale that ate meat and could eat like. I would choose like a baleen feeder,
or the majestic humpback.
Yeah.
But anyway, so whales really are, to me, I mean, again, they're one of my favorite animals, but they're really remarkable creatures. And for us to be able to talk to them on their own terms, the researchers at GERG and Texas A&M hope this will be the first step of many in communicating with other species. And if there is any species that would be truly amazing to communicate, for me, it would definitely be whales. So all in all, whales are, again, one of those ones that kind of like the halfway, like we talked about Koko and how like that is definite communication about how we see it. Yeah. But then whales are definitely, we're finally getting to the point in 2021 where we're like, hey, you know what? We should be trying to communicate with animals on their terms, which is going to be amazing. And whales, I mean, to me,
it's right. It could be so many other species then.
It could be, especially if this AI concept works.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you imagine just like putting in an earpiece and walking outside and you just hear conversations?
Right? That would be nuts.
That's my dream. Even if I live, can it please just happen? I can be 90 years old when it's finally invented, but please let me be able to walk outside and hear what the squirrels and birds are saying, because I think it'd be super funny.
Yeah, it would be really funny. So anyway, whales, I think it's, like I said, it's one of those species that they desperately want to communicate with us. And I think anybody who has had an encounter with a whale will agree that I feel like it's almost like a sixth sense that they understand us, or they're interested, curious in us way more. Like there's just something else on a whole other level. So it'd be very intriguing to see, Koko's one thing, but a whale, because you can't keep those in captivity. So it would be a wild animal communicating with a wild animal, which is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And that's
you can keep whales in captivity.
I mean, yeah, you can.
But
not a sperm whale.
Right,
not a sperm whale, humpback. Yeah, not the mega whales. So anyway, so knock, beluga whales, and whales in general.
All right. Well, I'm literally just following in your footsteps. You covered whales, which are cetaceans. I'm going to cover the other cetaceans. I'm covering dolphins.
Woohoo!
So more has been done with dolphins than whales, probably just because A, some people think they're more charismatic, and B, they're smaller and easier to work with.
Yeah, right.
So
you can keep those in captivity.
Yes, much easier.
Yeah.
So dolphins are another of the most intelligent species in the world. Studies seem to indicate that they do use tools, they are self-aware, they have complex societies, and even what's considered culture, which is...
I thought you were going to say cults. And I was like, dolphins would be the ones that have cults.
They would be. So it's due to their large brain-to-body ratios, which is second only to humans. So it's no surprise that they're a species that we are able to communicate with. So what does language look like between dolphins and people? Well, dolphins have highly complex auditory communication, just like whales, clicks, whistles, pulses, etc. They can both hear and make sounds 10 times higher than we can.
Which...
You know,
right?
I mean, there's nothing I could do that would be that high.
It's so high-pitched.
Yeah, but we can't hear it. And they can also feel sound in the water, which is pretty hard for us unless it's a big, deep sound.
Yeah, right? Like a big bomb boom.
Right. But they're doing high frequency.
But I mean, that brings up to the point. I don't think you're going to talk. Are you going to be talking about like submarines and everything?
No.
So just to touch on that, that's if you ever hear about like submarines and underwater, sonar noise and stuff like that. That's why there's so many advocates pressing for those to be banned within certain migration periods and nesting and breeding grounds for whales, because they can feel sound through water.
Can you imagine just like having a construction company beside your house all the time.
All the time. Like, you're not going to be breeding. I mean, like, you're going to be...
Stop the gosh dang hammering.
Yeah, right? But then also, like, some of those sounds are so loud that they beach themselves.
Yeah.
You know? And so anyways.
Yeah.
So, and that's how bad it is. So if you ever hear anything about that, I mean, I just want to talk about that real quick, just since you brought that up, because that's a really good point to make, that they feeling they're
sound.
underwater. They're feeling sound. Yeah.
So also, one of the other crazy things about dolphins, and not all scientists agree on this, but many scientists believe that they've even developed what's called a signature whistle, which is essentially their individual names that they develop for themselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they can call a friend with that friend's signature whistle.
What's your name?
I kind of want one. We should have signature whistles for each other.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be really convenient, like, to do it, like, in public.
Oh, Carl and I have a whistle for each other. Okay, so I'm 5'1". Carl frequently loses me in stores because I am so short. You often lose me on the other side of clothes racks. You can't see me on the other end of shelves. So our whistle is... And anytime we do that, I immediately, my ears perk up.
Signature whistle.
Yeah, it's our signature whistle. So it is extremely useful.
Well, all of this is leading us to the studies that have been done by Dr. Denise Herzing. This lady, amazing. So she has been working with the same group of dolphins in the Bahamas for 35 years.
Dang.
So she knows them.
Yeah.
She's had over 3,000 encounters with them and gathered over 1,000 hours of data and footage.
How long do dolphins live? Do you know?
Great question. I don't know.
I'll look it up. Go ahead. Keep going.
I don't know. One day, while working with the dolphin, she noticed that they were mimicking both her body postures and the sounds that she was making.
So dolphins live 25 to 30 years.
Okay. So she's seeing the next generation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
So they were mimicking her, and so that got her thinking how we could try and communicate with dolphins and how they can communicate with us. So again, can we meet
do it?
Them at least halfway? So she discovered that instead of trying to interpret the sounds the dolphins were making to find meaning, which is what a lot of people would do, instead of interpreting their sounds, she could use technology to allow two-way communication. So this is very similar to what your whale study was doing, except they actually did it.
Gerg.
Yeah. So they've done it, and they're making advances. So she and her colleagues developed a keyboard that had whistle-like sounds that were unique for 4 objects that the dolphins liked to play with. She said that was the key. It was play. That was how they unlocked language with the dolphins.
Yeah, which makes total sense because dolphins play all the time.
So she and her colleagues would use this keyboard with each other to request items, and then the dolphins wanted in on the game and started mimicking the sounds for like whatever their toy was.
So did the researchers assign the whistles then, like the whistle words, or?
Yes, these were at first. Yes, this is just an arbitrary whistle.
Okay.
Unique, but not like dolphin made.
Yeah.
So they if the dolphins could join in the game if they either made the sound or pointed to the objects that they wanted. So she states that this is the same way that you teach language to a baby, which is through context, not commands. So she allowed the dolphins to participate. She wasn't commanding them to do something.
Yes.
And that was, again, a big and also shows a level of intelligence. This is not, you're training the dolphins to do this. This is the dolphins' own choice to join in and communicate themselves. They're reaching out, just like the whales. So the dolphins then started to add additional whistles to the original ones.
Of course they did.
Right. They were just like adding extra stuff on. And they wanted to find out what they meant. So the Wild Dolphin Project, which is where Dr. Herzig and her colleagues work, have developed dolphin chat, or cetacean hearing and telemetry. This is so cool. So it's literally like Google Translate, but for dolphins.
That's so amazing.
You wear this device on your chest into the water. You press a button, and it sends out both a unique whistle as well as a human word.
Okay.
So again, these whistles were made up by people.
Carl!
Yeah. So then the incoming whistles are then translated into human words that are then repeated in your headphones.
Interesting.
But the catch is that the incoming whistle must already be pre-programmed. So they right now only have it's only these mimicked whistles. Yeah. Additionally, though, software is being developed that will recognize and interpret patterns in incoming sounds so that scientists can interpret natural sounds the dolphins make rather than just mimicked ones.
Okay.
So again, now it's okay using AI or using technology. Can it recognize sounds? It's the exact same thing that your whale people are doing.
Gerg.
So Gerg and my people are the Wild Dolphin Project.
Yes.
So, how are dolphins able to do this, to communicate? Like African gray parrots and some other species, they're also, again, vocal learners.
Yep.
So this means that they're able to quickly learn and mimic sounds. They communicate through vocalizations, and it's therefore necessary that they are quickly able to learn these because, in fact, they usually, they hunt in groups, and as things change, they need to be able to instantly communicate to each other what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
And I found an article that was written by a scientist who was doing research and found that baby dolphins learn to communicate by first babbling just like human babies.
That's so cute.
I know! So they just make they're just making random dolphin noises.
Yeah, to figure it out. Oh, gosh, that's cute.
So they try out different sounds and eventually they learn the correct sounds to convey the meaning that they want. However, they don't have the capability of producing human sounds like parrots do because, again, you're saying, lack of vocal cords.
Gotta get that blowhole worked out there.
Why do they do this? Again, another social species.
Yeah.
Dolphins live in large pods, as mentioned earlier, have complex societies. Since they don't have the ability to convey facial expressions like a primate, their faces don't move.
Yeah.
So the only thing they've got is auditory communication.
Which would be terrifying if they could.
Dolphin eyebrow.
Yeah.
So they can only rely on auditory communication. And so they need to have very precise sounds that convey directions and other things. So it's a simple step for this to be inclusive to a human who the dolphins consider to be in their pod, just like a bird with its flock.
Yeah.
And
which makes sense though. I mean, like you said before, you're going to be wanting to communicate to those closest around you.
Right. And so I'm curious, yes, they're seeing this with dolphins that work with people, but who knows how many wild dolphins who, again, dolphins, just like whales, are super curious. They come up to people all the time.
Yeah.
How many of them are trying to communicate and people just are like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, you're cool. And they have no idea.
Hey, you're swimming the wrong direction.
Yeah,
or,
right.
There's a shark nearby.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
So how do we know the communication is two-way? Because that's what I've been saying is kind of, there needs to be some sort of. So since the whistles aren't commands, but rather a learned behavior, the dolphins are able to connect to the meaning of the sounds and decide to request objects they want. So I think that this indicates a level of understanding that allows for choice. And choice means context.
Yes.
So if they are able to understand whistle communications that we send, and then with the help of a translator, we have a basic understanding of what they're going to say to us. Whoa. Yeah.
No, and that's the same thing with whales. So, I have to look up because there are solitary whales, there are social whales. It would be interesting once they start to use this technology. Is there a difference? You know what I mean? Is there a difference?
Yeah. I'm sure it's definitely an amount. I'm sure the social whales talk much more.
And is their language more developed than ones that only, see each other during breeding season,
right. Probably.
Yeah.
Because they have to have more, especially if there's cooperative hunting or cooperative rearing of babies, you would have to have specific noises to indicate certain things.
Yeah, what's going on, when, where, orcas. I mean, they're social. I mean, they live in pods. Yes, it would be so interesting. Man, science.
Yeah.
It's finally catching up. And were you done with your section too?
Oh, yeah.
So what's been going around social media? I mean, unless you live under a rock, if you're on any social media platform, you've been seeing the dog buttons. That's
Bunny.
Bunny and the dog buttons. There's so many dogs right now, and cats that are communicating now through these buttons and are figuring it out. And again, Bunny, the dog, that's like a whole other level because...
Right, because at first, I think a lot of them have just done the word association.
Yeah.
I press this button, it says treat, I get treat.
And Bunny has taken it, Bunny and her owner have taken it to a whole other level to where, you know, she was asking, like, who she is or what she is. Like, she was asking, like, you're a human, like, I'm a dog, like, asking
like
what...
Mom human... Bunny dog.
Bunny what? Yeah, bunny.
Right.
Bunny what?
And
Bunny
it was
dog.
like an existential question asked by a dog. I would be uncomfortable. I think living.
and then they're also doing talking about consent with a dog, like brushing a dog when they want to be brushed, and it's like. You know,
it's just like the dolphins, she was saying, though.
Yes.
That's choice.
That's choice, and allowing them to have a choice. So, I mean, animal communication, I think, you know, it's finally in 2021, and I think with pets, I mean, obviously, the pandemic and all being locked indoors, you know, again,
we're all
social,
talk more.
Yeah, like we're going nuts. We need to talk to somebody, but it's really, you know, taking it up a step. So yeah, animal communication. Again, we could have multiple episodes on this one for sure.
And again, for me, this is very much like the plant episode because okay,
there's repercussions.
Sure, we all want to communicate with our pets. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
But think about all the animals that we keep in terrible conditions for food. Does anybody really want to know what those pigs are saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it would change a lot.
Pigs are intelligent. Pigs are very, and cows are intelligent. Like people won't
so
say
if we can
they're
start
intelligent.
communicating with them, and like if you can communicate, and again, then consent should probably be a thing. And a lot of people are gonna poo-poo the consent thing with animals.
Yeah.
But if you're a sentient being that can make choice, is it ethical
to kill you?
I mean, or not even just to kill. Okay, maybe to kill sustainably, but like because like any other predator, it's not like we're gonna go stop predators from hunting.
Yeah, right.
But we certainly will have to keep them in different conditions.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Yeah. So, animal communication. Hopefully you guys learned something. And we'll post some stuff onto social media, so make sure you hop over there. Again, find us on Patreon. For the Love of Nature, you can just search there and support us that way so we can keep bringing you amazing content and bring more interviewers on. We're going to be having some interviews coming up, some guest speakers on the podcast. So, yeah, we will talk to everybody next week.
See you next week.